Hi there, this is Danielle with my final assignment for Level 2 of the Altenew Educator program. I'm starting here to create some backgrounds with the splatter hot foil plate. For my assignment, I have to cover 3 previous classes that I've done for the Altenew Educator program, and I chose Beyond Basic Backgrounds, In the Mood for Color, and Let It Shine. And by creating some background pieces with the hot foil plate, I'm already working on the Beyond Basic Backgrounds and the Let It Shine part. First, I did a Christmassy green print of the splatter hot foil plate, and I also did one in a teal color. And I also love to use the negative prints, so I have a solid hot plate. And then I can use the leftovers from my first prints and create another background. So I did that for both these colors as well. The main character of my 4 cards today is the Gradient Sunset stamp set. It's one of my favorites by Altenew, and I'll be using it on 3 of my cards today. On my first card, I will be using not just the sentiment like I will do on my other cards, but I'm actually going to use the whole sunset part as well. So I die cut a circle shape that I measured before I started if that would fit perfectly with this sunset in the circle shape. And I started with the word happy, and then I'm going to build that sunset around it. I stamped the word happy with the jet black ink. And then the bottom part of the sunset, I used raspberry ink. And then I'm going to work up in some yellow and orange colors from darker to light. And the first bar there in orange is caramel toffee. And then the next one is going to be warm sunshine. And I figured it will be easier to line them up on top of each other on the door of my stamping tool. Then they're perfectly positioned. So here I'm adding the last part, and if I just put it right against that previous one, it's perfectly positioned. So here's my lightest yellow, which is going to be buttercream. And there is my gradient sunset. Now I'm going to add the second part of my sentiment, which is going to be anniversary. We also have themes for this assignment, and one of the cards has to be an anniversary card, and also all the cards have to be masculine, so like you could send them to a male. I think sunsets work for both male and females, so I think we're good here. And remember the backgrounds that I created? I used green and a blue tealish color. So that way the backgrounds will have some more masculine colors anyway. So here is my final sunset. And as you can see, I also stamped that palm tree from the Gradient Sunset stamp set. And I lined it up with the letter H in the sentiment. And I don't mind it's falling off of that circle. It's just about getting the point of getting that palm tree in there. And then I also added some of the birds. And all the black stamped images I did with the jet black ink. So here I'm trimming that hot foil card front piece. I wanted it to be smaller. So I trimmed it to 5 1/4 inches by 4. And then to make it a little more interesting, I trimmed it diagonally. So I'm not using the entire panel. I put some marks down there, and then I will just trim it down. Because remember, I'm using the class Beyond Basic Backgrounds. So nothing is going to be basic here. And I think it's a nice piece of interest to the eye if you use a diagonal shape along with that circle shape. And I also find it more interesting to the eye if a card front is not the exact same size as your card base. So I always like to trim a little bit off there. So I added the card front, the hot foil print with some foam tape to my card base. And now I'm also going to add some foam tape to that circle shape, but it's not going to be all over the circle shape because part of it is going to go right onto that foil printed sheet. So I will just need some glue to attach that over there. So this is my first finished card. I got it all covered beyond basic background. It's shiny and there's a lot of color. That's the other class I chose. For my next card, I'm using the wooden rowboat die set. And in this screenshot, I was just showing you that this is for me the only way it works to get all the die cut pieces into a A2 size piece of cardstock. So I often have my cardstock cut already in card bases, but also in A2 size pieces because it just works easier for me whether I'm die cutting or I'm stamping. It always fits in my smaller stamping tool that I always have on hand. And I just wanted to show you the one way how I can fit all these pieces of the wooden rowboat die cut into one A2 size sheet. Once I have it die cut, I have some washi tape on the back to keep all these pieces in place. For me, that works better to color them with my Copics when everything just stays in place. And I'm going to create 2 boats on my next card. And here you see me coloring the pieces in some browns, a purple, and a really dark red. Maroon maybe is a good way to call it. And I will use the same colors on the next one, just color each piece differently so that it don't look exactly the same, but the colors are still matching, which makes it easier on the eye when your card is finished. Now it's time to put all those pieces together and to create my rowboat. And I find it easiest to start with this piece. I do not know the parts of what these parts of the boats are called, but this front piece that goes over the top of the boat, and then when you add this little trim, you can perfectly line that up against that bottom purple piece. So here you can see me lining that up. You just push it right against that purple piece. And next we're going to add the shadow parts of the benches. And I don't know who designed this one, but it's pretty genius. Because once the whole boat is put together, it really looks like these pieces are the shadows inside the boat coming from those benches. So when you color the base piece of the boat, you got to make sure that it's a lighter color and that you color the shadow pieces in a darker shade of that same color. Otherwise, you're losing that effect. So now I'm adding those benches on top there. Now you can see it all starting to come together and how that shadow is working. And then lastly, there is this trim, or maybe the front part of those benches that I colored in that same dark maroon color. And it's just a nice finishing touch to give the whole image some depth. And I will put together those petals as well. It's just a 2-piece part. And if you color them in just 2 shades of brown, no matter how you do it, you will definitely get that nice 3-dimensional effect. I'm not going to attach those petals to the boat yet because I'm not sure yet how I want it to look at my card yet. Here you can also see the other boat that I colored. I ended up not using the brown, but just stick with the red, white, and purple. So for the background of this card, I used part of the hot foil printed panel that I did with the solid plate. So with the negative piece of the print. And it kind of like functions as water, which I liked in combination with the boats. The Missing You sentiment is from the Gradient Sunset stamp set that I used earlier. And the second card, the theme I'm creating here was love or thinking of you. And I figured Missing You would fit that category as well. So that's what I used on this card. Once I have my water panel in place, I'm adding my boats. And I'm one of those people, once I feel like I have it perfectly in place, I like to hold it and just add some glue to one piece or one side of the piece, and then add glue to the other side. Somehow I tend to mess it up if I just take it away and put glue on the whole piece. So here are my colorful boats for the In the Mood for Color class, with my shiny and beyond basic background with the hot foil plate. And now I decided to only add one set of the paddles to my card. I thought using both sets will be a little too much, so I'm just using this one over here. And I really like how this card turned out. You see all that shine of the teal foil? I love it. Then my next card I created is with the All Things Sweet stamp set. This is maybe obviously the happy birthday card that we had to create. What is better for either a male or a female than some ice cream and cupcakes? So I used the layering guide to layer those stamps. I figured there was nothing much to show you, nothing special, nothing odd that I did to create, to show you in this video. So I stamped those off camera and die cut them. Then I'm using the green print with the splatter hot foil plate, and I cut a diagonal piece to make it interesting to the eye. Again, I used the sentiment from the Gradient Sunset stamp set, obviously the happy birthday one, and I used Volcano Lake to stamp the sentiment. This time I'm just going to glue down that hot foil plate print diagonal piece to my card base. Now I'm first going to lay out the ice cream cup and the cupcakes, just to make sure that it's perfectly in place how I want them. All these images, I'm going to add them with foam tape, and I find it easier if their individual pieces are already glued together how I want them. So you see me here wiggling around to just get some glue only on those areas where the die cut pieces are touching each other. And now I find it easier to just grab the whole image and add some foam squares to them. And now I can add them as one piece to my card, and I already know that they're going to be perfectly placed how I had it in mind. So here we have the masculine birthday card, and I'm very happy how this one turned out as well. Then we move on to the last card, and I use the All Things Orange stamp set. I love this stamp set, but somehow I haven't used it a whole lot yet. So I stamped and die cut those images that I'm going to use for my card. And this is going to be the encouragement card. And this All Things Oranges stamp set has really great encouragement sentiments. So here I'm starting with ink blending my card base. And because of the sentiment I'm going to use, which is the sun paints the sky all things orange, bringing us hope that it will set only to rise again. So I wanted orange to be the main theme of my card. It also fits the In the Mood for Color class that I'm covering. And I'm ink blending here some squeezed lemonade distress ink along with some pink. I did not ink up the pink brush again. I've just been using some leftover pink that was still on my brush, which was enough to create this orange sky. So here is that sentiment that I just mentioned. And with a heavy ink blend, I like to use my heat gun to make sure that it's all dry. Here's my little piece of hot foil plate print. And again, I'm going to use it as water, in this case as an ocean, because that will be perfect for the island I have there. And one of the reasons I love this stamp set so much is because the silhouette of this island looks very, very similar to the island I live on called Saba in the Caribbean. So for me, it's a little extra special, and I always love to create cards that represent the island because I sell all my cards here and people go nuts over that stuff. Also, our island always have this never-ending cloud hanging over the top of it. So this cloud stamp from this stamp set is perfect to make my card even resemble the Saba scene more. So I have that big sun coming from behind the island, and then that cloud that we always have over the top of the island is going to go on top of that. So again, I have all my individual pieces glued together, and then I'm going to add some foam tape. So this whole piece is going to stand out a little more. So now we're adding this whole cluster of different images all in one piece to my card. And I'm just obsessed with how colorful and pretty this turned out. I let that cloud overhang a little bit to the side of my card, so you just need to trim that last piece off. And look at that shine of the ocean there at the bottom. Besides the 4 cards, I also have to create an altered item for my assignment. So I have this wooden frame. I love the look of just the wood, but we're going to change it up entirely. So I took out that background piece and measured it up because it was a little bigger than the usual cardstock pieces that I usually have pre-cut already. I think this was about 6 by 4 inches. So I'm trimming that exact same size out of my cardstock. And that will be my background piece. For my altered item, I'm using the Vintage Roses stamp set. It's one of my favorite rose stamp sets that Altenew has. And I'm just going to stamp and die cut a whole bunch of roses because I do not have any clue yet what my design is going to be. So I just like to create a whole bunch all at once. For the lightest color, I used rose quartz ink. And then for the second layer, I'm using Puffy Heart. And you see how I keep twisting that cardstock, because once you have all your stamps perfectly in place, it's easier to create a multiple amount of them. The hard work of layering stamps is positioning each stamp perfectly. So once I start with a stamp set, I will never create just one flower at a time. I will always create multiples once I have my stamps perfectly in place. So for my third color, I used purple wine. And I love how with each step, the dimension is showing more. I'm working on the last layer now, which is Cosmic Berry. And here you can see how I have a bunch of those roses and also the leaves from this stamp set arranged on my background piece. It was quite a puzzle before I was happy with it, so I decided to not bother you showing you all the guesswork on how I wanted it to show. So now I'm just trimming off some of these edges that are sticking out, because I always like some leaves and flowers to hang over the edge to make it just not too perfect. And then there's 2 roses that I didn't glue down yet. I'm going to attach them with foam tape, but I find it easier to stamp a sentiment in there first. The sentiment says, "You're strong, beautiful, capable, and simply awesome. And it's from the vintage tapestry stamp set. So once I have my sentiment in place, I can add foam tape to those 2 roses that were still hanging there loose. And I think this is nice for some extra dimension in the frame. I also chose this sentiment because I think it's a great one to hang on a wall somewhere. Just a reminder to someone that they're just awesome. Everyone needs to hear that or read that every now and then. So I think that's a great sentiment for some decoration piece. So here we are with that last rose. Now I'm going to attach this piece to that background, and I'm just going to simply glue it. My glue has proved before that it's strong enough to hold all different kinds of materials. So that's just what I'm going to use. And now I'm going to work on the frame. Like I said before, I love the natural look of that wood, but I also really love the color teal. So I'm just using some simple acrylic paint, and I'm not going to give too much thought to this. All I want is one simple layer of that teal paint. And if you stick to just one color, you can still see those different shades of the wood coming through that paint. Just make sure that you have every little piece covered, also those inside edges and the outside edges. On the back there are these metal pieces that keep that background piece in place once it's in there, and it was actually perfect to leave those metal pieces open so that my wooden frame was not laying flat on my glass mat. It was resting on those metal pieces, and that actually makes it really easy to paint that frame. Now that all the painting is done and it's dried, I'm going to put that piece in there, and all it takes is just push those metal pieces back in place. And I'm already very happy the way it looks, but I had a couple roses and leaves left, and I thought it would be nice to have that rose bouquet continuing on the frame. So I positioned some on the left and on the right of that frame, and I'm just going to glue them down. Nothing complicated, and it's sticking perfectly. And I just like how that image is continuing onto the frame. I'm really happy with the end result. I hope you enjoyed watching me create my assignment projects for level 2 of the Altenew Educator program.